Hey, it's Richard at MagnaFlow, and we are here at Camburg, and today we're going to be doing an installation on a brand new Tacoma, and as you can see that right behind me here, we've got our newest addition to our exhaust lineup, our Overland Series, and I'm going to be popping that in, and you're going to see it all here in real time as I take the stock exhaust off, put the new one on. But first, let's take a look at the truck and what it's equipped with and exactly what we plan to do with it. So here we are, our newest generation Tacoma, and of course, typical Camburg style, they've done all the outfitting here to bring it up to specification, minus the exhaust system, which we're here to fix today. So as you can see, we've got all the upgraded Camburg gear here, Fox shocks, upper control arms, coilover setup, and of course a very nice ride height here. As we can move along towards the back of the vehicle, got our lovely GFC camper here, and the one thing we are absent, of course, is a high clearance exhaust, and as we can see, we've got our stock tailpipe dangling well below the body there, but that's what we're going to fix today. So I'm going to go back to the back of the truck. We're going to open up the new exhaust system, lay it out, and go through the process of actually doing the complete install. Here we are. Our catback for this system is the 19583, and this, as it says here, is our Overland Series catback. It's a 2.5-inch exhaust system, straight through, stainless steel, all the typical MagnaFlow workings. But as you can see in the diagram here, and I'll definitely show you more up close, it does have one of our new Helmholtz sound resonation chambers, which eliminates the unwanted drone in the cabin. Basic tools here. I'm going to go through the installation. Going to need a few things to get through. Not a lot on the Tacoma for the install. Pretty straightforward. Basically, going to need something to get the hangers off, some lubricant to put the hangers back on, and of course some wrenches down below. And if I remember correctly, the Tacoma is a 15 millimeter, so we'll grab some goodies. Got my knee pads here, those are always handy, and my 15. That should get us off in the front, and I think we'll be good to go. Let me get something to lay on underneath the vehicle. And we'll get started here. So basically the first step here is going to get the stock exhaust off. And to do that, we got to loosen up. There's only 2 bolts on the bottom. And I'll get everything laid out underneath here. And we'll use those 15 millimeters to get that off. A little bit of lubricant here, and we should be good to go. But let's take a close look at what we're taking off. And here's our mating point. As you look at the bottom, you'll have the Y pipe, and we come from the Y pipe to our first connection, and of course that is a flange connection with a reusable gasket and 2 15 millimeter bolts. As we pass through to the very large stock muffler, you can actually see that the tubing itself, as it goes into the muffler, has multiple pathways, and you can tell it's partially chambered and partially packed based upon the temperatures that you see here. This is an area where you see a lot of heat, which typically indicates an unpacked area, or a chambered section area that's a lot of insulation is typically indicating that it has a straight through or perforated tube section. And then of course, as we move further to the back, you'll see that there's a single outlet, but the pathway up top, down low back here is typically indicating that there's a different pathway that it passes inside, multiple passes, which is the case as we have cut these open. So the first step we're going to look at, of course, is getting the hangers loose. And to do that, a little bit of lubrication always helps. If you're doing this in the driveway, just like I am here on the ground, no jack stands required, especially with the extra bit of Camburg lift, but anything you can do to loosen up the rubber contact to the metal hangers is going to make the whole job easier. So a little bit of spray there, and on the other side here, and that'll take care of that. And of course we'll do the ones at the back when we get back there. So let's get started and start loosening up some of the front parts. Looks like I may have misguessed on the 15. It's actually a 13. Now, depending upon whether your truck is new or has a little bit of wear and tear on it, you may find that it will require a little bit more force, but this is a fairly new truck, so it should be an easy takedown. And it actually is a 14 millimeter Unfortunately, nothing is seized, so this comes apart pretty easily. As you can see, there's a little bit of water collection here dropping out. One of the things that you will find in all exhaust systems, especially late model ones equipped with catalytic converters, is that you will find water condensation. You'll see this out the tailpipe too. Nothing to worry about. That water is actually a byproduct of the catalytic converter doing its job. In the case of any kind of modern vehicle equipped with a catalytic converter, water vapor is a byproduct of getting rid of the extra hydrocarbons, and of course that H from the hydrocarbons is the hydrogen, the C being the carbon portion, break up and form H2O when oxygen is combined with it, and that's the water vapor we see. And that extra oxygen combines with the carbon as it converts into carbon dioxide, and an incomplete combustion, actually carbon monoxide, and that's the harmful gas that we get out of the emissions gases. So don't worry when you see the water, that's a perfectly normal thing. That seepage should stop once we get the gasket back in it and the new system on. When we do design these systems, it's definitely something that we take in consideration, which is the idea that you can put these on without the use of a lift. I am going to be moving to the back here, and I'll show you what those hangers look like as they come off as well. If you don't actually have an exhaust hanger tool, which I'm using all the basic tools that most people would have in their garages, I usually use a set of channel locks like this to kind of put pressure on the head of the bead here and pull the rubber over the top. Obviously that extra bit of lubrication there helps tremendously with getting that off. And you can see on both sides, it moves pretty easily once that penetrating oil or lubricant gets in there. I do retain the rear and the very front hanger so nothing falls on me while I'm underneath. But then once I get them over, I will use my hands up here to kind of push and make sure that nothing does fall on top of me. As you can see, the exhaust frees up pretty well here. I am going to move back to the front and pull off the front hanger and allow the front to rest on the ground. So there's a good view of what the exhaust looks like, partially taken down. Again, not a whole lot of tools required. Definitely DIY friendly. Here's our last hanger. And same technique. Just be careful, as this is the last hanger, you don't want the system to fall on you, so when you are pushing this through, don't push it through all the way, and when it does pop, make sure you brace this well. You can see I got the head of it pushed through, applying a little pressure, and now the exhaust system is freed up. We're going to go ahead and feed this through up and over the axle. With the stock exhaust system off, you can get a better view of what we saw underneath the vehicle there. And as you can see, we have a true authentic Toyota exhaust system here. And it is something that we are going to make a complete replacement of. The nice part is, our Overland Series system is, of course, packaged for better shipping, but also for easier installation. And that was a fairly easy installation, or I should say removal, but the installation would be just as easy in multiple parts. So here we're gonna go ahead and open up what we have and take a look at the parts in the box. This is our primary piece here. And here's our muffler, and there are some unique aspects to this. As you see, the dual outlet. We'll talk about what that is once I get everything laid out here on the ground. If you haven't read the instructions, it's always a good idea to go through the instructions to kind of see where the placements are. Obviously, there are a number of things that are unique to this system from a standard exhaust system, and some of those things you'll find in here with the Helmholtz chamber, the U-pipe, and of course some of the options we have with the cap that you can run, as well as the U-pipe itself in the chamber, but also a hanger that is something that we can reposition on the back on the tailpipe based upon the overall height we want to run, and we'll see that when we get that in place in the back. Now, taking a closer look at the exhaust system, you'll see we have the very same factory flange with the recess for the gasket, same hanger. There's our inlet pipe to our new Overland Series muffler, and the dual outlet, which makes it unique. One of the things you'll see, obviously, it is a straight through design, so that's where we pick up the power and how we're basically building more power, and this side is where we control the sound. And as you can see, there's a port here, a little bit more visible from the other side, and that port on the side there is what allows the sound waves to travel out this end through our U-pipe and then into our Helmholtz chamber. We can tune out the unwanted drone sounds by reproducing them. Now, this is where the cap comes into play. You can insert that here or actually cap it off at the back of the muffler there, depending upon how much drone cancellation or frequency that you want to cancel. As you start to upgrade things, and we put things such as larger tires, different gear ratios, or increase the amount of load based upon the weight we're putting in the vehicle, you'll find that you want to fine tune that using the different features we've provided. So today I'm going to go through and I'm going to put the full system on with the maximum amount, assuming that we haven't changed the gears here, and a slightly larger tire. This should give us the best amount of drone control. So next, we'll assemble everything on the vehicle and put everything back under the vehicle as well. So first things first, we're back underneath and we have the parts laid out here. We want to make sure that the gasket is still intact. If it is damaged, you're going to probably want to take a look at going to either the dealership or your local parts store to find a replacement. But in most cases, these are very reusable. So make sure that's intact and load it onto the edge of the pipe. And we'll start by assembling the first components. Again, we're going to reuse all of the factory hardware, and we're going to put everything back into the factory holders. So here, we've got enough lubrication left over, it looks like, from the previous removal, that we can go ahead and insert the pipe connector through the factory hanger. Next, we got the factory bolts going back in, and everything we're putting in now is just going to be loosely placed in so that we can get the proper placement before making any final adjustments. Next up, we're going to be placing the muffler in. And this goes in the same cavity that the original did. When you are putting the part on, make sure on any of the slip fits that you do put the torque clamp in first, and you orient it in a way that you can get to and torque down any of the parts the way you want, whether you want it up high, facing this way, or facing this way. Just kind of make sure you orient that before you put it on. Same thing goes for the back hangers here. You're going to want to make sure that you get a little bit of lubrication on these and slide them right back into the factory position. Everything again should be loose. We're not worried about torquing anything down. So looking at the back of the muffler, we have two outlets and we want to place our new Helmholtz chamber to remove that drone, and that can be placed either on the side or on top based upon what spacing you want to use. And same rules, make sure you place your clamps in whatever orientation you would like so they stay out of the way. And just make sure that you are putting the U-pipe with the Helmholtz chamber on the side that doesn't have the straight through flow. So here we are looking at this side here is the side where the airflow goes. So we're going to put this on the side where it's not. And finally, our Helmholtz chamber. So again, you can see I'm not tightening anything up, everything's free hanging, and we're ready to move on to the first of the tailpipe sections. And with the intermediate pipe in for the tailpipe, I'm going to be moving on to the rear section here. Hopefully get you out of some glare. And we'll see where the pipe connects and where the final hanger goes. And as you can see, this is where our final hanger position is. And the reason why we've left this separate and not welded to the pipe like we have traditionally is it gives you some degree of adjustment. There's a lot of different suspension configurations available out there. And with different gear going in, we wanted to make sure that you can get the height exactly where you wanted. So once you slip this over, your position that you put it into can move this further away or closer to, based upon what space and availability you have. Being that this one's fairly stock, it's going to pretty much go in the straight up position. Okay, I've got everything loosely placed now, and I'm going to finish pushing in the two hangers here and move up front, and we'll start torquing everything down. And we're going to start at the front and work our way back. I like to get everything started by hand, and as everything kind of falls into place and we start to get some torque, I'll make some final adjustments to get everything to fit kind of exactly in the right rotation. The majority of the system is put together with really one socket size that's 15 millimeter minus the 14 that originally came in the front. So going to torque everything up is pretty easy, just need one tool. For the sake of speed, I'm going to go ahead and use an impact, but be careful not to over torque. As you noticed, I got it a little bit tight, so it had a little bit of friction on it, and I went ahead and rotated the muffler till it is actually out of the way and in a kind of straight orientation so it's not crooked. And I'm going to tighten it down a little bit more. Working my way to the back, you'll see I have the 2 connection points here. We're still fully adjustable. I'm going to leave this one slightly looser than the other one, since this one's going to adjust the final tailpipe position. So again, I'm going to go ahead and start by getting this close to torque. Just enough where there's still some rotation and not enough to cause anything to come apart. When you look at the upper portion here, let's see if I can get you a better view. As we look up on top, you want to make sure that when you put the Helmholtz chamber on top of the muffler, that they aren't making contact. Like you can see here, you can't see daylight through it, is actually touching. That'll make some vibration noise. So when you go to torque this up, just make sure that there's a gap underneath, and you can see here I can fit my hand underneath here now. That's where you're going to want to set it so that it doesn't cause any noise or unwanted vibration or rattles. Okay, now we're going to move on to the rear tailpipe section. And again, just looking if we can move a little bit, because we want to get this tailpipe in its final position as well. So here's where we're going to look and see what we're going to do as far as overall in positioning. A little bit more lube here. Make sure when you do get these hangers across that they have these knurls at the end. You want to make sure that they are completely placed so that you don't have to worry about the part moving out. Now, as you can see, when we go to tighten this up, the position on the pipe will allow you to push up or down to get the clearance that you're looking for. So basically rotating this up will give you more and more clearance above our lowest point here, the shackle. And whatever position we have it in, you can see it holds right up against there. And I'm going to go through, and now that I've got everything in place, torque down a little further and hold the muffler and assembly in its final position. But one of the things to take a look at is our clearance. As you remember before, we had a tailpipe that was down here a good 4 inches away, and now we are tucked right up on the bottom side of that hanger, and if you can see, even with the lowest point. So now if we're going to come up and hit anything, we're not talking about smashing the exhaust into the plastics or the body panel of the vehicle. So we're going to do some torquing and get everything back up to spec. We always recommend that you get everything torqued up, drive a good 25 to 50 miles. The exhaust itself will heat up. You might see some white smoke that it looks like that's coming out. That's actually the bending grease. It's a water-soluble grease that basically burns off your first time that you're using it. And then we want to make sure that you go back and re-torque, so to make sure that everything that you have in place hasn't moved. Stainless steel has a pretty high growth rate, so it's going to want to expand and push apart those clamps that we just torqued down. So I'm going to go ahead and do our first pass on torquing, get it started, and we'll see what it sounds like. So here we are all set with the system installed, and I've got a guest. He's going to go ahead and fire this up for us so we can give it a sound here. There's that light white smoke that you're seeing. Of course, that's that bending grease blowing off, and a little bit of water vapor too, again, as we talked about with the catalytic converter. But here's the man himself, Jerry, and
what's up?
We are here obviously taking care of the Tacoma with our latest Overland Series, and I know you've heard these before, but give us a little impression about what you think on the Tacoma and the high clearance and exactly what that means to you.
Yeah, so on these Toyota Tacoma is the stock exhaust. It's down here on the ground. I'm sure Richard will show that massive thing off. The muffler's like that big. It's like a drum of fuel, and it's that long, and you know, they just sway around under the truck when you're off-roading. You can hear them clanking around. They're heavy. The tips are sticking out the back. When you come down things where you got like high angle approach, I mean, I've seen them and I've had it happen to me where like the stock tips just push up into the bottom of the bed. So that's just the first thing that goes when we're off-roading. All the stuff we do from off-road racing and high performance off-road goes right into overland, because we're really all looking for the same stuff. At Camburg, we're really more about higher speed overland, which is why our suspension and the products we use translate into that. So for us, it's about high ground clearance, way less weight, bulkiness, really simplifying everything. And when you're off-road, I don't like it to be quiet. I want to hear the vehicle because I'm more in tune with the RPMs and what I'm doing. That's just kind of a driving thing, and I think most people really appreciate that as well. And MagnaFlow, it's just not overpowering. Like when you're going down the highway at 65 miles an hour, there's some exhausts on the market, they'll drone and it just drives you nuts, so you got to either speed up or slow down. MagnaFlow's really done their homework. You get that droning to go away. Just enough volume where you actually can hear the truck and feel the power. I really enjoy that personally. I loved it on my Raptor, love it on my Jeep, love it on the Tacoma. Big difference because I like being in touch with the driver.
And then we didn't want to lose out on, obviously, the driver connection. We are still selling a performance exhaust, and we want to be able to get that performance. We still want to have that performance sound. We just don't want the annoyance while we're out on the trail with family, friends, and eventually even just enjoying nature for what it is, to be able to have something that just is not disruptive to the overall experience. So there you got it. In just about 30 minutes, we have a full installation, removal, hand tools, no specifics required. And thank you, Jerry, obviously, for the commentary. Jerry, along with a lot of our customer base, you guys out there are the reasons why we came up with the Overland Series, and here it is for you, practical usage and ready to go on the market. So check out the website, find more about it. If you have some questions, ask down below. Thanks again for your time. Again, it's Richard at MagnaFlow here at Camburg, doing the new Overland Series exhaust on the Tacoma.